Good evening, everyone. I'm Archit Teshadri. Thanks so much for joining us. Today is Tuesday, August the 1st. The time now is 1:30 in London, 2:30 in Cape Town, 8:30 in the morning in New York, and 6 p.m. here in New Delhi. Tonight, we focus on three topics. First up, the U.S. with Scaramucci. Then we head to West Asia, where we talk about Yemen, and then wrap it all up with Qatar. First up, Scaramucci. Team Trump has hit chaos yet again, this time after grabbing headlines for his inappropriate comments on senior White House officials. Anthony Scaramucci has now been fired as the White House Communications Director. U.S. President Donald Trump removed Scaramucci just 10 days after appointing him to the post. Scaramucci was removed at the advice of the new Chief of Staff, John Kelly. A White House official says Kelly wanted Scaramucci removed because he thought he wasn't disciplined and had burned his credibility. In just a short time, not even 2 weeks, Anthony Scaramucci raised the chaos level at the White House. He was hired as the communications director despite having no relevant qualification or experience. His arrival prompted the departure of Sean Spicer as the White House press secretary, followed by the resignation of another press aide. Scaramucci, who had vowed to take action against leakers, then went after two top White House officials, Reince Priebus and Trump's chief strategist, Steve Bannon. He unleashed a vulgar tirade against the officials in a conversation with a reporter. He had also called Priebus paranoid and schizophrenic. Priebus then soon resigned from his position as the White House Chief of Staff. The White House claims that Scaramucci was removed to give a clean slate to the Chief of Staff, John Kelly, but the press secretary, Sarah Sanders, did state that President Donald Trump felt that Scaramucci's comments towards top aides were simply inappropriate. Let's listen in.
Certainly felt that Anthony's comments were inappropriate for a person in that position, and he didn't want to burden General Kelly also with that line of succession, as I think we've made clear a few times over the course of the last couple of days to several of you individually, but General Kelly has the full authority to operate within the White House, and all staff will report to him.
Scaramucci is the third White House communications director to leave the position in just 7 months of the Trump administration. All right, let's get perspective on this story. Let's now go over to the United States, where Glenn Carl is joining us, a former intelligence officer. Glenn, thanks for joining us tonight. Seems like yet another shakeup again at the White House. What do we blame? You know, is this perhaps showing the lack of leadership with the Trump administration? Who takes the blame?
Well, Scaramucci might have said one thing that, although a vulgar term we all know and actually is correct, and that which is that the fish rots from the head. So the person to blame is Donald Trump. The reports, the reliable reports as to why he hired Scaramucci is because, quote, he liked how he looked on TV, unquote. Sean Spicer, the man whom he replaced, functionally replaced, Trump's first comment was, why does his suit not fit properly? This is what seems to count for Donald Trump. The man's thought is like was said about a politician in America 120 years ago, a mile wide and 1 inch deep. That's why he was hired. And the chaos comes from the man in charge. And it's very tempting to focus on the amusement provided by a bunch of clowns making fools of themselves. But of course, this is the White House and the presidency of the United States, so it actually is not funny at all.
Glenn, let me also ask you with regards to this. There's been a whole host of memes and things that we've seen. How to lose a guy in 10 days. The allusion to the movie. Him just lasting 10 days. I mean, Sean Spicer. Now this other White House officials also taking the bullet, resigning. I mean, there really seems to be a seesaw when it comes to who remains to stay in the White House. Do we expect that to perhaps change? Could we perhaps just say these first 6 months have just been a learning curve for Donald Trump, or are we expecting more resignations in the future?
Well, I would anticipate more reservations, a learning curve. I think this is the hope of all rational people, and it's been said after every gaffe, and every day there are 50 gaffes. So now we should have learned that that is not going to be the case. Donald Trump is Donald Trump. He is as he is. You are as you were probably when you were 3 years old, and so am I, and Trump will not change. Now, Kelly, a four-star general, a career in the military, clearly will bring some order and professionalism that way. But he can't change fundamentally the superficial nature of Donald Trump's mind, his focus on himself and his ignorance, which is unremediable, unfixable about all policy issues. That won't change. These are not wild denunciations. Unfortunately, they are factual statements. So I think we'll see a better functioning White House under Kelly, but the policies will remain highly challengeable at the best, and that's okay to have policies with which one disagrees, but incompetently advanced and harmful to the American national interest, whether it be domestic or foreign. Trump, has essentially declared war on the Republican Party, which is nominally where his allies and are, and the party that he leads, again, theoretically. Of course, he spends his time denigrating, insulting, demeaning, and alienating all of the Democrats and anyone who disagrees with him on any point. So he's a man alone with a bunch of charlatans like Scaramucci who are his allies, and that Kelly cannot change.
All right, let's in fact, we'll come back to the discussion in a bit. Let's continue taking a look at those who have resigned and been fired from the Trump's administration previously. All right, well, we have Reince Priebus, the White House Chief of Staff. He was fired by President Trump after he hired John Kelly, the White House Chief of Staff. Priebus spent about 189 days in office. Next, we have, of course, Sean Spicer, the man before Scaramucci. He is the former White House press secretary. Sean Spicer had resigned after Donald Trump hired Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Sean was in office for more than 6 months. Then, of course, James Comey, yes, the FBI director. President Trump abruptly fired the FBI director, James Comey, back in May after he led a criminal investigation into whether Donald Trump's advisors colluded with the Russian government to influence the last presidential election in 2016. Comey spent just over 3 months in the office. Michael Flynn also taking the bullet. The ex-national security advisor, Michael Flynn, was forced to step down back in February this year after he failed to disclose the nature of content of talks with Russian ambassador about the U.S. sanctions on Russia. Flynn was in office for just 23 days. Mike Dupke, he is the former White House communications director. He resigned back in May. Dupke was replaced by Anthony Scaramucci. He was in office for just over 2 months. Then Sally Yates, the former acting attorney general. Sally Yates was fired in January of this year after she asked the U.S. Department of Justice to not defend Trump's travel ban that barred people from 7 Muslim-majority countries.
We're super excited about.
All right, so it may not be the last of the sackings. President Donald Trump is also reported to be pretty upset with the man he picked for Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, the man who came out early in support of the Trump campaign and who shares Trump's hard-nosed approach to crime, illegal immigrants, and trade deals. So what exactly happened? Well, the story of Jeff Sessions is as follows. Jeff Sessions did the unthinkable and to Trump the unforgivable. He recused himself from overseeing the probe into Russian meddling into the U.S. election campaign. Trump wanted him in that job to shut down the Mueller investigation into Russia's meddling. He also wanted Sessions to proactively probe Hillary Clinton's activities, including use its private emails for the government work. So when Sessions backed down, Trump lost it. In his usual manner, he tweeted his displeasure, saying Sessions had taken a very weak position on Hillary Clinton. Sessions is under pressure to quit, but is holding it out for now. Some reports say he is now keen to mend fences with Trump. Many others holding key positions in Trump's administration also are set to be suffering in silence. The Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, is reported to have privately indicated that he may not last a year in his job. Tillerson's concerns is that he feels abandoned by the White House, and he is not being consulted on key policy towards Iran. Other key positions in his departments are being filled, ignoring him. His department's budget could be cut by a third. The latest is he is taking time off from his job. All right, let's go back to the conversation with Glenn Carl. Glenn, it seems like it's not just Scaramucci. There are others, perhaps, in the White House under the Trump administration, perhaps, as they said, suffering in silence. Do we expect those things to change in the near future, or not really?
Well, I mean, hope springs eternal, doesn't it? But no, these won't change. And the devastating, catastrophic list and litany of firings and resignations and pressures and miscues that you have just laid out for our viewers doesn't go far enough. You talked about the potential one-third reduction in the budget of the State Department. Now, let's put this in context. This is where I spent my life. The State Department has always been the poor sister in the national security foreign policy establishment. Although they are the titular heads who make policy, they have always been starved for funds. The Defense Department has more funds to buy pencils than the State Department does for foreign aid. And I don't know that, I'm just making that up, but I would wait, I'll look it up, and next time we're on, I'll tell you. And the figures will be shocking. Worse than that, we're talking about a 25% reduction at least in the number of personnel in the State Department. Every district attorney, federal district attorney in the United States was forced to resign by Donald Trump. It goes on and on. Why? It all goes to Russia, Trump's associations with Russia, whether Russia's intelligence service associations with him or Trump's associations with Russian intelligence. Sally Yates was fired ostensibly because of the immigration issue. That is true. But the deeper truth is that she had alerted the White House appropriately, doing her job, defending and upholding the Constitution, about Michael Flynn, who was then National Security Advisor's associations with Russia. That's why she was fired. That's why Comey was fired. That's why Sessions is being criticized and pressured by Trump. It all comes back to Russia. And as you know, I have been hopping up and down for well over a year and a half when I started to focus on Donald Trump about what are clearly his associations and vulnerabilities to Russian intelligence. It all goes to that.
All right, and really quickly, Glenn, before we let you go, let's also get some understanding on the new man there, John Kelly. You know, what do we expect his position to be? You know, where do we see the White House under his direction after Priebus?
Well, Kelly, he's a career military man, very successful, highly regarded, a man whom I do not know personally, but who is uniformly described as a man of integrity and honor, which one would expect from a senior service officer. So I would expect certainly more competence and more professional functioning in the day-to-day operations of the White House. That will bring some order. That is true. His own views, he's a military man. And he comes from an area 1 kilometer from where I grew up. He and I are contemporaries, actually. We just didn't know each other. And one would anticipate, one has seen in his brief public life as a political figure, that he is deeply conservative socially and seems to be in harmony with some of the more, frankly, egregious positions concerning immigration and terrorism and national security taken by Trump. So it fits that he be serving in the Trump administration. He's not been a political man, doesn't have too much experience on the Hill, although the criticisms of him, reservations expressed in that point, I think are overdone, because a senior military officer will have experience in how to deal with Congress. So things will get more professional. Substantively, I don't anticipate that they will change.
All right, Glenn Carl getting us the very latest from the United States, where the White House scuffle continues. Anthony Scaramucci out after a brief stint of just 10 days as the White House Communications Director. All right, shifting now gears to West Asia, where we focus in on Yemen.